Hey,
Hello!
what's happening?
Welcome to the live stream of consciousness. I got crazy hair today. I'm kind
You
of
do
digging
got
it now.
crazy hair. What's going on with you?
Feels good. Feels nice and crazy. I don't know. Nothing. Everything. I feel so busy. I'm always pretty busy, but like I just like, I do a lot of things, and when they're all happening at the same time, it can feel really daunting because I move from like one way of thinking into another way of thinking, and I just like constantly moving. But
Okay.
life is good. Just had my 1 year anniversary with my beautiful Julie. Uh,
Wow. Holy moly. Has it been a year already? That
it's
was that
been a
was
year.
fast. That's
Yeah,
great.
went by quick. Time
Wonderful.
flies when you're having fun.
Yeah, man.
Uh, so life's good, and I'm about to work on a new issue of my comic book. I'm working on that TV show,
Sweet.
music things. I've been like playing the trademark game all week with trying to trademark a name for my band. I don't know what's gonna happen. It's so annoying. We have a name that we really like, but it's
Yeah.
kind of being used. Like it's not being used exactly the way we want to use it, but like
Oh yeah.
got to work out all this like legal stuff before I
But you're
get into
feeling
it.
good
But
about this band? You're feeling like it's
I
gonna
feel great
it's
about the band. I
that's
love the
awesome.
band. I played with Jack Russell's Great White, and
Right,
his
right. I remember, yeah.
band are awesome players, awesome people. We've been writing together. Like it's really good. Everything's going really good. But we have a name that we lucked into or came across or whatever that we really liked, and we did our first show as that, and decided, all right, that's actually going to be our name because it was supposed to be a joke.
Right.
And
It was
and
very
now I
clever.
have to legally figure out if we can do it.
Acquire
So
it. You have to acquire it legally.
yeah, literally, like that's the advice of being given. Go buy this name from the people who are using it. I'm like, we haven't made any money yet.
You know
But yeah,
what? It is a clever name. I'm not. I'm gonna keep it under wraps as long as
yeah,
you're not saying
keep it
it.
under wraps, so I don't have to deal
But
with
it's
any
very cool,
execution.
and I think it might be worth it. And especially if listen, you know me, and I've been telling you to get back into music and get something serious going. So I'm excited to hear that you got something going.
Yeah, it's great. There's a lot of cool stuff. Actually, tonight at midnight, there is a music video premiering that I am in, covered in blood.
Oh,
I'm sure I will post a link to it sometime next week, either on
yeah.
like my Facebook or something.
Who is
But
that for? Who's the musician?
it's a death metal band. Um,
Nice.
what's up? Oh yeah, am I allowed to say? That's like, I
Not
guess
allowed
so.
to say.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
they're
yeah.
called Unconsciously Dying, and they're the lead singer's from Israel, a friend of a friend, and this is, I guess, like their first like big music video out here for
Cool.
Unconsciously, or is it Unconsciously Dying or Consciously Dying? Consciously Dying. So it's
Cool.
really cool. Me and Julie are both in it, looking pretty demonic.
That's so weird.
Um,
Like you went back to California, and all of a sudden you're like in all these music videos with Julie, and like
yeah,
it's
it's
so
pretty
cool.
funny. Yeah, they
It's
just kind of keep
wonderful.
coming up.
It's an exciting life. I think that's
How
cool.
is your life going over there in New York?
Life is very cool. I actually I'm actually doing some damage control tonight after the show. I designed some screens again for your dad, D. Snyder. He's
Oh,
doing
okay.
a show this weekend at Arnold Schwarzenegger like
Oh, yeah,
sports
yeah, yeah.
festival,
Uh-huh, uh-huh. I
and
gotta go pick up one of the cars over there.
I designed the screens, and I didn't take into account some things that I didn't see on the drawing, which was a space between the screens. So I didn't take that into account, and I've got to like do some damage control tonight to fix those videos and get them ready because I think the show's
Oh.
tomorrow or Saturday. It's like
Yeah, 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 yeah,
yeah,
yeah, I was talking to him at the airport.
yeah. So, but you
Well,
know what?
that's really cool.
Yeah, I was excited to get them done, and I got them done early. And luckily, we sent them, and they're like, "Oh, this might crop off weird, you know." So I'm gonna fix them, and it'll all be good, and life will be wonderful.
Nice. Well, Michael and I have like a kind of a crop of people who were attempting to get onto the show, but we kind of keep, not quite having a good day for everybody. But when we were talking, we immediately came upon the same subject that we were interested in talking about, which was fear. And I wasn't even connecting it to the potential for war that's going on right now with Ukraine and whatnot. And we're going to try not to get into anything here that's particularly political or whatever. You know, we understand that
Right. What's
it's a
up,
sensitive
sunshine?
issue. It's a tough subject for people. I think you probably, if you know Michael and myself well enough at this point, you know that we're always going to be arguing on behalf of peace. Sorry, my cat is messing up my desk back here. I have too much stuff on my desk.
That's it.
You know, we're definitely people who lean towards peace at any cost. You know, but we're going to try not to get into too much of that particular subject matter. But we really want to talk, I think, about fear in relation to the natural laws that we're living under on this planet, and you know, what sort of master we're really serving when we allow ourselves to worry about what if too much.
Mhm.
But so to start with you, Michael, what was the impetus for you wanting to chat about this?
Well, you know, it was just I was at work today, doing my thing, and there was some people in the office that were just talking about the situation, and this is going on, and that's going on, and uh, you know, every time I would walk out of my office, I would hear this conversation going on. It was like they were relentlessly going back and forth, and it was totally obviously preoccupying their thoughts, right? And you know, I felt the energy when I walked by. I felt it was like, you know, you know, I don't. We don't want to get too into, like you said, like certain things, conspiracy theories, this and that. But it felt like they. It, I feel like people are being manipulated into being afraid.
Well,
And it,
let's just say this, right? You know, I know a lot of, you know, the media really likes to talk about Putin. They've had a whole thing about how evil Putin is for a long time, and this isn't me
Mhm,
going, "Oh, he's not so." I'm not defending him. I'm
mhm,
literally just kind of going, "This has been the narrative that he's the
mhm,
worst. He's the next Hitler. He's the right."
mhm,
Have we noticed yet that they said what they had to say in order to get us to go to war in the Middle East?
mhm.
We've come full circle on that, right? We
Right.
now know there were no weapons of mass destruction. The things that they said were not true. It was a
Mhm,
means to get us in, to which you might say, but it is true this time. To which I say, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. you know,
right. Right.
so I'm a little bit more hesitant to just buy into whatever is being said. And to a certain degree, it's like the more they say it, the more I'm like, well, is that true? And I don't care if it is. I don't want any excuses to go to war. You know, I listen to Russell Brand's channel a lot. I really
Mhm,
enjoy his
mhm.
channel. And he was,
Yep.
you know, kind of arguing for a more, what's the word? You know, an
Accountable
approach.
approach.
Well, yeah, the approach of just like sort of like chastising them, you know, sort of like you need to stop this, and we will make trade bans, and we will do, you know, like you don't have to go and shove a nuclear bomb up somebody's butt because they're doing the thing, they're doing violent action. You can maintain your peacefulness and try to continue a conversation no matter what. I understand that fear makes us think that we must act and we must jump on the thing. We got to stop. And who knows where this could go? Keeping a level head and a level mind about things is always the best way to de-escalate a situation.
Right. Right. Of
Jumping in
course.
and fighting fire with fire is always the way to escalate a situation. So, you know, I think there's a lot of ways to approach something like this when other people are warring, to try and convince them that it would be in their best interest to not
Right.
war. That does not involve punching them in the face. You know, the biggest thing when it comes to all these wars is how much money there is to make. When these things
That's
become
a lot of what Russell Brand is talking about, and I listen to Russell also, but it's also, I think it's very evident, and I think that a lot of the things that are going on with government and their intervention is becoming obvious to people. You know what I mean? It's kind of, people are waking up to, hey, wait a second, the government is kind of not speaking for me and overstepping its bounds, and you know, hopefully, you know, again, I'm not. We're not here to preach anti-government conspiracy, this or that, but you know, the same thing that Russell Brand always says: think for yourselves. You know what I mean? While you still can,
and have a conversation.
and have a
You know,
conversation.
let's
Exactly.
have a conversation about it, and let's not have all of these, no, he's Hitler. Like, okay, everybody you don't like isn't Hitler.
Right. And it's so
Um,
odd, isn't it odd to feel like sympathy and be like, wait a second, everybody's saying Putin is this evil Hitler guy, and you're like, but wait a second, let's take accountability for what NATO has been doing, and I don't really know all the ins and outs of it, but it's not like all of a sudden he made this decision. There's
no,
lots of stuff going on.
and again, in terms of like, I don't want to sit here and have any sort of debate about any of these things, but there is another side.
Right.
If
Exactly.
you want to go yourself and investigate what Putin is saying is the reason why they're doing what they're doing, it is not remotely the same as what we're saying over here is the
Right.
reason why. You could say, oh, well,
Right.
just listening to him is a manipulation. It's all a manipulation as far as I'm concerned. So I'm just listening to both sides of the
I'm definitely
manipulation
on that
to
page for
try,
sure.
yeah, to try to get to a more reasonable place of me understanding things, as opposed to me just being manipulated by the side that I am supposed to agree with. I agree with peace. I don't want any conflict to be going on that doesn't need to be happening. And I'm not just going to look for the easiest reason to go get revenge, because I don't think that that's the right
Right.
approach. But
Right. Right.
look, all of this comes back around to this universal law that we teach. Law, one is we are all one. We are Ukraine, we are the Ukrainians, we are the Russians, we are the Germans. We're one unit, and to be harming one another back and forth in any fashion is just hurting ourselves. That's the universal lesson: is you want to do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And even like, if it was truly you, and let's even go a better route for those of you who are parents, and have a child, right? You are that child. That child is you. If that child was misguidedly hurting other people, would you want to just go in there and unempathically destroy that child? Or would your approach to helping that child, your child, be to do it in a way that did less harm, did less damage to that person, because they're a part of you? You know that person, you love that person is you. So, in all things, when we're talking about this, especially when it comes to war, we don't want to go into this place where we start rationalizing why we should take the violent action and do the thing to a piece of ourselves that we wouldn't prefer be done to us, right?
Right.
We would always hope that there's a benefit of the doubt being given, that there's an opportunity to surrender or
Exactly.
have a conversation being given. Whatever you would hope would be done for the person that you love the most, you
Right.
gotta hope would be done for your greatest enemy, because your greatest enemy and your greatest friend are ultimately, they're the same being expressing itself
It's
in a
so
different
funny
way.
how people don't see it when it comes to certain things, that application of do unto others as you would want unto you. That's exactly what you're saying. It's like, you know,
Well, we're going to get to it in a second, but there's a
yeah.
reason why I wrote the irrationally fearless, or rational versus irrational, right? We're always talking about like, well, it's rational means like, okay, well, there's a reasonable reason to be upset for
Mhm,
this,
mhm,
right?
mhm, mhm.
And irrational is like, oh, you're crazy. You shouldn't be upset about that thing, right? So rationalizing why war is necessary, rationalizing why taking the low path and going to that place. What is it when they say, uh, drag them down to your level, kind of thing. Don't rise to their level, drag them down to yours. That's the bit. Like, somebody does something
Mhm,
that's unreasonable, and at a certain point you think rationally
mhm.
it's appropriate now for me to drag them down, for me to, but really you're not dragging them down. You're dragging yourself down to
Right,
their
right, right.
level to
Right,
meet them, where they are. And
right, exactly.
somebody did something awful. Let's be just as awful as them. And that's going to
Right,
lead us to the promised land. I don't think so.
right.
Probably not. That would be my guess.
And
Uh,
unfortunately, it's just been generations and generations of this dilution of understanding that oneness, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and we're so far from it. I was thinking today, I was trying to think, I'm like, the idea of community or civilization starts with people saying, hey, how can we work together to help each other to make life easier for each other? That's how civilization starts.
Yeah.
And then people work together, and now they're working together, and all of this stuff is happening now. They're all thinking different ways, and like, wait a second, you can't think that way, instead of thinking, how can we help each other? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So it's the now civilization is falling apart because people aren't looking to work together.
Yeah.
People are looking for reasons to hate each other and to get angry at each other, it seems to me.
Well, I think that people are really wrapped up in themselves and their own creation of their own, universe, where everything is what you think it is, right?
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
what's law number two? Law number one was we're all one. Law number two is everything is the mind, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So, the solidity and the liquidity that we find here, those are just concepts. Time is a concept. These are ideas. And what came first, the chicken or the egg? The idea for both come first, right? So the idea for how we're doing things, the idea of what is first. And I was saying to Julie the other day, I was like, if you move in with somebody, sometimes uh, people will say, I'm trying to get like the quote, but the quote would usually be like, you don't really know anybody, you don't know somebody until you try to live with them or something.
Hmm. Hmm.
And part of that is because we live in our own worlds. And sometimes we will find when you do move in with somebody that their world, their inner mind is very irrational. And they start to lie and be sort of crazy when you're living with them because you're peering into their universe and they're not used to somebody having like a say in what's going on and defining what's going on for them. And
Hmm.
you'll find that people like are crazy, or at least they seem pretty crazy to you in the way they live and what they think, versus seeing them at lunch every now and then they seem pretty rational. Then all of a sudden you're up to you're hanging around with them all the time, and you find out that they're very lackadaisical on lots of levels and aren't really thinking clearly about how they're behaving or what they're doing, because we kind of tend to live in our own little isolated bits. And I think now, with the advent of the internet the way that it is, it essentially allows you to be um, really aggressive and fearful at the same time. Usually, like, the fearfulness keeps people from interacting with the other people who might have an opposing view and whatnot. But you could
Hmm.
just launch out on Twitter all the things that you want to talk about. So there's
Hmm.
a lot of people's universes kind of crashing into one another. I think it's like this, and I think it's like this, and I think it's like this. And I
Hmm.
think different people are hung up on different things.
Hmm.
In my life, I've really tried to never get hung up on things.
Hmm.
That's kind of what I would call like the irrational fears. Like, there's irrational things that you can get hung up on. And
Hmm.
again, I want to get into this rational, irrational thing in a second more deeply.
Okay.
But to get hung up on the irrational ideas that are out there of like, oh, nuclear bomb could be at any time. I could get raped if I walk down the street. Somebody could stab me. This could happen. That could happen. A volcano could erupt. The whole planet could get hit by asteroids. Like, there's all sorts of things that we could worry about. You choosing one thing to worry about more than all the other things is just an imbalance. You
Hmm.
know, one thing does not trump all the other things. It's always just, they're always kind of equally available for better or worse.
Hmm.
Um, but
Or we could not worry about all of them equally.
or we could not worry about them all equally, which is what I try to do. I try to go, all right, everything is more equal. Let's not let one thing be like,
Right. Right.
because especially it blinds you to the thing, like, let's say, you're worried about Nazis, all anybody has to do is say Nazi, and then you are compromised because you're
Triggered. Yeah.
so worried about the
Hmm.
Nazis.
Hmm.
you know I'm worried, only that we're not going to be able to find our way to balance. So, everything can be sort of an imbalancing opportunity, but to pick any one thing and worry about it is not the best, not the best choice. But what I really want to get into here is that bit of the mind, and the mind creating all these concepts. And one of the concepts that is created by the mind is fear. bravery, or what do you call the opposite of fearlessness? Inner strength or non-worry. That was the state that the mind of the universe was in before the idea that maybe it should be worried about itself came along. Once the universe became worried about itself, or at least parts of the universe became worried about itself, we have been playing a game ever since. And I have been wrestling with this fear of jumping out of an airplane for a little bit right now. I am really afraid of it. And
Literally jumping out of an airplane?
literally jumping out of an airplane, it scares me. I got my
Really?
Julie's jumped out of a plane a bunch of times before. Actually, my ex-wife
Wow.
and my ex-father-in-law, my mother, my ex-brother-in-law, like all of these people that are very close. I watched them jump out of a plane. I couldn't do it. I shamed myself big time not being able to do that. I'm somebody who really considers myself generally, specifically, irrationally fearless. And I consider the idea that I don't want to jump out of an airplane with a parachute like I'm being irrational, and that I should be able to like get over this. And I was meditating the other day, and it came to my attention that that was just like one step along the way of the full fearlessness that I was hoping to achieve.
Okay.
That I was drawing a line at rational fears, and I'm looking at all these irrational fears going, I'm not going to fear that, and I'm not going to fear that, and I'm not going to fear that. And she was like, yeah, you're scared to jump out of an airplane with a parachute. Everybody's scared to jump out of an airplane without one. And that is an unwarranted fear. And you might argue and say, Jesse, it is a warranted fear. If I jumped out of a plane, I probably. But actually, when it comes down to it, these are all ideas that we have that this would hurt us and harm us and kill us. In reality, there's actually people who've jumped out of airplanes and their shoes haven't gone off and they have survived.
Dude, there are those people who fly with those wingsuits, man, and they're like inches away from the rocks, and I'm just like, what the hell is wrong with you?
Well, and it's dangerous and scary, and I have more power to those people. I mean, seriously.
Yeah,
But
man, it looks like a lot of fun. It looks
there
like I
is
want to do
no
that.
difference ultimately between rational and irrational fears. And it's really kind of hard to wrap your head around because it seems so clear and present. Obviously,
I can understand.
yeah, right. Like I don't want to go to war. I might get shot. Meanwhile, there's that guy. If you've ever seen this great movie, it's directed by Mel Gibson, and Andrew Garfield plays the lead. He's a conscientious objector, and he won't carry a gun. This guy is in one of the most dangerous war zones. It's like on like a cliff, and in Japan, we were like invading. It was a really bad place. We were losing so many soldiers, and this guy went in there without a gun, and he saved more people than anybody on the American side and the Japanese side.
That's cool.
And he's a conscientious objector, and basically he made this like peace with himself and God, whatever was that he was believing, that
he was protected because
he was protected.
In a divine mission.
He survived, and literally, like they needed it. The whole troops, like they didn't go back into the war zone without him. Like the troops, like came to believe that he was a lucky charm.
Good luck charm. Yeah.
And what a lucky charm he was. This man who I'm sure had a lot of fear that he was getting over to go into these war zones and be a medic and not defend himself and check these people out. But there is magic there. There is magic happening in this scenario. Totally. This is a true story that happened with this guy. And I know it's really easy for us to, kind of deny these things or poke and prod them and be like, well, yeah, but all the, oh yeah, but you got, it's all about fear. It's all fear of, yeah, but what if I do what he did and I get shot in the face? Or what if I do that situation, I jump out of the plane and I am the one who dies? Well, if you start going down this path and listening to channelers and people who are really have a strong connection to the other side, they would come back and they would tell you a lot of different things about probability, about how we all have checkout points in this life, and that we choose to die. Like anybody who dies, and again, can be a difficult subject to get into, but when you are passing away of cancer, that means on some level, your higher self has decided
You did what you came here to do.
that you did what you came here to do, that you are not prepared to do the next leg of the journey as is, and you want to go reconnect to the infinite source of all things to remind yourself of how things really are and come back and take another shot at this thing.
Yeah.
I know it could be really seemingly untrue when you have people who are like, I don't want to die. And like, sure, that's the unconscious mind and the conscious
Right.
mind.
The human experience aspect of it, for sure.
Exactly.
No, I'm with you, and I know probably a lot of our viewers are understanding that, but I think you're right. The general public probably doesn't wrap their head around that so much, you know.
Well, and for me, and I don't know how many people are going to necessarily relate to this, but as I've come to this understanding that, okay, we're all one and everything is the mind, and that fear is an illusion. It's literally a bad idea. I kind of consider myself
Fear is
somebody
a
who,
bad idea.
it
I
is.
love that. I
It's
love
just a
that.
bad idea.
That's a
It's like,
T-shirt. Fear is a bad
somebody thought
idea.
up something that would kind of freak you out, and you're like, "Oh, damn it, Steve! Why did you think that up? That's gonna freak me out now." Like,
Oh,
you
I
put
always
that
say
in my
that.
head.
I'm like, you just manifested that. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, exactly. You put this bad idea in my head, and now I'm freaking out about it. So when I came to understand that fear was just a bad idea that the mind of God came up with, the mission became, well, we got to dissolve all these useless bad ideas. And being kind of the overachiever that I am, I was really I've been throughout my life really putting myself to the coals on anything that I thought was like an imbalance in myself that I needed to try to fix. When I was younger and I was told that I talked too much, and and I was taking up too much of the conversation, the reasons why I was accused of talking too much, which was something like, like that I was egotistical or something like that. That wasn't true. But the acknowledgement of I was excited to talk to people and I was talking too much and they were feeling like I was talking too much. Okay, well, what are we going to do? And it became a mission for me for a long time. Okay, well, how am I going to get myself to realize that, like, I got to listen better and I got to make sure everybody knows that I'm listening to them and acknowledge what people are saying so they feel good, right? So this thing about, fear is an illusion. I have to get rid of my fear. I've been trying to force myself to jump out of an airplane, like really going like, you got to wrap your head around this. You got to get over this, blah, blah, blah. I realized that I was just sort of overachieving and pushing myself way too far, and that I have had a lot of fears. And this is a lot for me to admit, but like that basically I was like a bit of a scaredy cat, and there was a whole bunch of things that I was really afraid of. And at first I kind of argued in my meditation, like, well, I wouldn't say I necessarily argued so much as I just kind of went like, like you've caught me. Like I'm caught. I don't know what to say here. I guess you're right. I guess I'm afraid. And I realized worse than that, I was so afraid of some of these things, like the jumping out of an airplane or being in big groups of people. That's a big one for me. Like having large groups of friends. I've had like friends turn on me, and like it's made me nervous about people. That all of these things were essentially so scary to me that I had to block myself from growing as a soul to protect myself from having to live through getting over my fears. So if you understand what I'm saying,
Yeah, I do.
if I get over my fear of heights, then I would have to jump out of an airplane. I don't want to jump out of an airplane. So I'm just going to stop you right there. Don't you heal me. Don't you fix me. Don't you balance my energy. I like being
can I
afraid
just say
of these
something?
things.
Can I just say something?
Yeah.
I've jumped out of a plane.
Oh, you did?
I've jumped out of a plane.
I didn't know that about you.
And it's awesome.
I'm sure it is. I have a perspective, like a more rational perspective, where I'm like, I know that I'm going to do that one day. I'm going to be like, that was so nice, and I'm so glad that I did it. Like, I'm a thrill seeker. I love roller coasters. I like having a like time.
It was when I was in that plane, it was fucking scary to make that decision and say, all right, I'm ready. You got to go now. That was yeah.
Absolutely. And you know what? I know that Oh, what's I lost the words for how I was going to say that, but um, I know that this has something to do with other lives, other
Oh,
lives that I've had.
okay. Okay.
And I still don't know exactly what happened to me in these other lives. And this is really a suspicion I have, but it's very overriding. For me, when I was younger and I was like on like a cliff or on the balcony at a hotel, I would look over the balcony and I would think I could jump. I could throw myself off of this balcony and it would freak me out. And then I would go back inside. And I didn't imagine that it would actually get worse. When my children were born, I remember being on a balcony with Logan in my hands. And I thought I could throw her off this balcony. And I was like, oh my God, why would you even think that?
Right.
This
Yeah,
is
yeah, yeah.
crazy. This is crazy that you're
It
thinking that.
scared yourself.
I need to go inside. But I think that out of desperation in another life that I may have thrown myself and a
Mhm.
child over a cliff
That's interesting.
to
That's
end my
totally
life.
interesting.
And
Wow.
it's become an irrational fear that because I don't really have
So that relates to
anything
jumping
that I
out of a
can point
plane
to
as
in this
well.
life.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
but in this life, I can't say that anything's happened to me to make me feel this way.
Right.
And but never fails. Like clockwork, I have this crazy irrational fear
Right.
that I have the power to throw myself to my death. And whenever jumping out of a plane comes up, I'm just kind of like, nope, I'll jump out of a crashing plane, but not a perfectly good plane.
That's
No
fun.
reason to do
Well,
that.
all right. So I'm going to address.
Sure.
We got a comment here from Lorraine, and I have an answer. It says, "What is your basic advice on fear of going to the dentist or a doctor,
Well,
or fear of water?" Well,
thank you for focusing me because that's really the point of it all. I was sort of like, well, whoever you want to say I was talking to, my higher self. I'm like, well, what am I supposed to do about this? I'm
uh-huh.
so scared. I'm scared to change. And
Mhm.
they said acceptance. And I didn't quite grasp how major that was until Julie actually said something to me about the 5 stages of grief.
Mhm.
And the last stage of the 5 stages of grief is acceptance. And I went to go look up the 5 stages of grief, and I'm looking at like, anger and like all these things. And I'm like, yeah, I felt these things along the way. The last thing is acceptance, which is literally just you sitting there going, I'm afraid. I acknowledge that I'm afraid.
Mhm.
This scares me. I
Right.
don't know what to do about it. I don't know what can be done. But I understand, and I'm not trying to hide or mask or run from the idea that I am afraid.
Sure.
And I think that is the beginning of helping yourself.
Right.
It definitely was a major breakthrough for me,
Mhm.
and it was a subtle sort of thing, but accepting some of the ways that I was scared because it was very hard for me to admit that. I talked to my brother Cody about it just for a minute, and I said to him at a certain point, because it was a great back and forth conversation about fear. And my brother Cody's dealt with some fear in doing ayahuasca. Some of the situations that he's been put into have been very scary for him.
Mhm.
And he's always kind of admitted that freely. And I basically felt like I had to talk to him because he was admitting to his fears easier than I had in my life. Um, and he was being really just kind and supportive, about the whole thing. And I finally said to him, I said, when I had this realization, it really freaked me out because I thought I couldn't tell you that I was afraid. I thought
Mm.
that if I told you I was afraid, that it might scare you and that I was the older brother and I was supposed to not be afraid.
Right.
And
Right.
like I
Right.
was nervous to share this with my mom because I was nervous that like on some level, like if I told her I was afraid, that I was like opening her up to being afraid or something.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
And it was really kind of freeing. I, I know we all put lots of pressure on ourselves in various ways, depending on who we are and what our sensibilities are. But I'm the oldest son.
Right.
My father's a real borderline toxic masculine masculine. You know,
Borderline toxic
well,
masculine.
a lot of
Don't let
what.
D. Snyder hear you say that.
Well, you know, I think my dad would admit, you know, freely to
No,
these things. If you
yeah,
said to
right.
him
It's
that, D,
caricature of
would you
himself.
say that a lot of your drive to do things has come from a desire to show other people and fucking in your face, like, you know, that's the I'm gonna get you, I'm gonna revenge, you know.
Right.
When I was younger, I was taught a little bit of like you know, two eyes for an eye. You know, they take your eye, you take both their eyes. All right, you know, we go in there and we get them.
Wow.
Which
D.
was,
Snyder. Wow.
well, that is the sort of tough, we're going to
Yeah.
make it in this world kind of thing where that we really came from. You know, my whole family has really mellowed out and are not very much like that anymore. And we've always been very nice and very kind, but the idea that anybody would come up oppositionally,
Right.
you know, we were sort of taught to
Well, yeah,
take
you
those
have that
motherfuckers out.
Italian like family thing going, you know.
Yeah, take them out, move on with the life. So there is this crazy, you know, balance going. And I, as the older sibling, I just always thought like it was my job to be tough, it was my job to be strong, it was my job to be fearless. And
Right.
whenever I sort of came across a fear of mine, I would kind of work until I wasn't scared of it anymore.
Right.
To a certain degree, me playing football, I'm a national champion semi-pro football player. I am that because on some level I felt afraid that I was scared that I was scared of
Mhm.
people and of fights, and to prove to myself that I wasn't, or to get over it, I
Right.
subjected myself to lots of combat sport. You know, all I play is physical sport, you know, from hockey and lacrosse, and you know, I wanted to be a boxer. You know, it was just anything I could do to put myself directly in front of other people and go, let me prove to myself that I'm really strong.
Right.
But, you know, for anybody out there who is feeling any version of that, because I'm sure there's a lot of versions of that idea that like you have to be strong no matter what, and you just kind of push away these things that you don't like and you push them down. It was very liberating to let these things rise up for me and look at them and go, okay, it's okay.
I don't have to
And
jump out of a plane.
yeah, and it's funny because I had a secondary conversation that I want to say was, you know, more with the energy that I would uh, consider God, and basically where it was saying to me that I was having trouble with this because I didn't trust it to not hurt
Mm.
me.
Oh.
And part of that trust was about the story of Job. And I don't know those people who know the story of Job. The story of Job sucks. Job is a very faithful man. He's in the Bible, and basically Satan and God have a conversation about Job, and they're like, Satan's like, Job wouldn't be your main man unless you gave him all this stuff that you give him. If you stop giving him all the good things, he'd totally turn his back on you, God. And God's like, no, I'm gonna take everything from him, and he's still gonna be my main man. And essentially, God goes on to ruin Job's life and really make him go through terrible things, hurts his family, and all this awful stuff happens to Job. It is there's a lot of scary things in the Bible. That story has always freaked me out the most.
Okay.
On any level, that it didn't matter. Like, and it was the thing that actually made me an atheist too. I was like, fucking Job, man. Like Job, God kicked Job's ass for no good reason. But the story of Job is a story. It's there on a lot of levels for a lot of different reasons, and I'm sure it means a lot of things even more deeply than I've come to understand, you know, that it means. But I was essentially told this bit of this sort of infinite spiral that's ever going, and like if the spiral just goes on forever, and we think of like sort of like a sharpening knife or a pencil, and like the tip of the pencil just gets thinner and thinner and thinner and thinner, that basically, like, there was the right edge of the pencil and the left edge of the pencil, and this was like your perspective, and then here's the other perspective that maybe you don't like, and the right answer, that balanced answer that God's theoretically going to bring you to, is like this balanced in between the two things that you can't even see, because the center sort of like goes on for forever, sort of becoming moot as to what is left and what is right as it gets thinner and thinner, and that it's this deep, 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 infinitely balanced perspective that God is using to help guide us, and that the leap of faith to trust that this universal perspective that is had, that is just above everything, that gets everything, is one not so far apart from you that it's alien and scary and it's going to hurt you.
Okay.
And two, is subtle and all-knowing and gentle in its long path to this perspective.
Right.
And that just because you make peace with a thing does not mean that tomorrow you're going to have to jump out of a plane now. And they showed me sort of a scenario where things were going so well in my life and I was feeling so good and I was so happy that at a certain point I'd said, oh, it's my birthday tomorrow. You know what we're doing? We're going to go jump out of a plane. I'm getting on that plane and I'm jumping out of it. I'm ready. I'm doing this. I feel good. And I just sort of went like, oh, wow. Like, it could be like that. Like it could be this wonderful, glorious thing that I've worked my way up to, and
Right.
here now it is, and I get it as a present, not, oh no, I'm hoisted into this scenario that scares the hell out of me. It doesn't have to be like that. And in having this sort of acceptance and making this peace for the scenarios of anything that it might be, that there was plenty of gentle ways in which the universe would unfold to bring you around to see another side of something that currently might make you really sad. So to say to our friend here, she's talking about the dentist, right? So you say, I accept that I'm really scared of the dentist. And now somehow, and this is just one scenario or whatever, somehow your dentist passes away. He's gotten too old. He dies. You got to go get a new dentist. Turns out the dentist that you got was hurting you. And this new dentist is really gentle.
Right.
Maybe the dentist that you had, he moves away, or for some reason his
Away.
insurance.
Can I offer alternate to that?
Yes, you can. The dentist doesn't have to die. Maybe I was too extreme making the dentist die.
But no. The reason I actually wanted to address it initially was because specifically, I don't have a fear of the dentist, but it's not my favorite place to go.
Either, generally.
I put it off as long as I can, and if I don't have to do it, I don't. But you do have to do it, right? So for me, it's all the power of the mind, right? It's all what you think, what you hold on to, what's your you put yourself there. So normally, I realized when I was there, that's what I was concentrating on. Oh my God, the pain, the moment that's happening, like that's what's happening. But in my mind, I realized, and I had gone on a trip to Jamaica. A friend of mine got married in Jamaica, and I was able to sit out on this float in the middle of the ocean, in the middle of Jamaica, with the full moon, and kind of take a mental snapshot of that place and that moment. And now, and hold it specifically. And now when I go to the dentist, of course I get a little sweet air, it helps, but I can bring myself back to that place. So I'm in the chair, my eyes are closed, the dentist is doing what he's doing, and I'm sitting in Jamaica on that float in the water, and I'm there based on my thought. Instead of being in the dentist chair and being like, I don't want to be in the dentist chair, and thinking about the fact that I'm in the dentist chair, I'm thinking about the fact that I was on that float in Jamaica and how beautiful it was and how it felt, and just conjuring that moment. And
I
that's
think
my
that's
advice.
Yeah, that's brilliant and wonderful advice. And I think that somewhere right within what you're saying is
Mhm.
acceptance, right? Like the all right, I accept that I'm here in the dentist chair, but I don't have to be here in the, like the step beyond acceptance is, oh, okay. And now because I've accepted it, my mind is, well, I'm not
Free
in
to do
resistance
somewhere
anymore.
else, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I mean, I
Oh, see
really
that?
do believe
Visuals are amazing. Awesome.
visuals are amazing. Yeah, it really is true. The visualization is so major. If you can imagine yourself with money, imagine yourself happy, imagine yourself in the dentist chair having a nice time. Imagine yourself jumping out of a plane and you're not afraid. Like all these things are really wonderful, powerful tools that you could do, because you are creation, and by thinking those things, you're essentially creating reality in a little bit of the vacuum of you, that can sort of the mathematics of that, sort of brings it to the forefront of reality when you can see it in your mind.
Totally.
It's interesting, I just I got my third stripe. I got one last one to go for
Oh,
Parker.
look at you.
I was a little bit behind, but if you see, I got plastic wrapped around it, but it says Grayson. While Grayson was here, I got Grayson's
Nice.
stripe for him. And my sister's boyfriend Nikki did my tattoo. He's only like, I don't know, he's in like his first like 20 tattoos, something like that. He hasn't really done very many, but he's a very gentle, woke, spiritual guy. I'm going to be bringing him on the show. He actually just did ayahuasca for the first time. We're going to have
Wow.
Nikki on the show pretty soon. And Nikki, what a light touch he had on my tattoo. Like before it's been a couple years since I'd gotten tattooed, and I was really nervous. Just like I hadn't dealt with it in a while. Some of my tattoos had been very painful. So I was sort of like remembering the worst of it easier than I was remembering the best of it. I mean, because the best of it, you're still getting poked in the arm, but so it was easy for me to remember all the pain. What a wonderful experience I had with the tattoo. It's so
That's
black,
great.
so dark.
And that's a pretty solid tattoo, man. That's a lot of needle. That's a
it's
lot of needle.
amazing. Yeah, no, I'm going all the way up my elbow
Wow.
next week. But he did such a great job. It wasn't such a bad situation. It was significantly easier than I imagined. And I found out that his needle stroke is a bit gentler and more reasoned than my good friend who had been working on a lot of my tattoos, who had kind of
Wow.
generally hurt me a lot. And my
I don't mean to laugh. Sorry. I was
oh
just...
no, it's okay. I really think I have karma with my friend, and he was, working out some of the debt I owed him. I don't know what I did to him in my last life, but this time around
damn tattoo.
he was hurting me.
Tattoo.
But yeah, so I mean, really, a different dentist. You never know how something can change, and all of a sudden you can change your perspective. But my tattoo with him, it literally changed my whole perspective on tattoos. Like, I'm so excited to get some more now because this wasn't so bad. I've had some that have been really bad, and I overcame how painful some of my tattoos have been. Like the one on my chest was really a nightmare. And I think different for me than most people because of some weird muscle problems that I had in my chest. But I was, a little unnerved and ready to use, tattoo cream and stuff. And then he worked on me and I was like, man, this is easy. Right. So, your perspective can change so easily. And you just have to be open to it. And that acceptance.
And we always talk about we always talk about intention, like guide that. You know what I mean? Guide that thought to what you want it to be. You know what I mean? Choose it. Yeah. That's what I say. Oh, I gotta grab something real quick. But Lorraine is asking another question. So you answer this while I go grab something. What is your definition of woke?
Woke. Well, it's interesting. For me, there's like sort of a popular definition of woke in culture right now, which I would say is the beginning of social justice. What social justice, really is equality for all of God's creatures. So it's equality for the birds and the bees and the dogs and the cats and the humans. We've been so backwards and superficial for so long on this planet that right now woke is kind of like paused at reparations for the ignorance that was held yesterday. Granted, it's just become a little bit of a new form of ignorance, whilst seemingly there's a lot of benefit to, let's say, being a white guy, right? Society is this interwoven tapestry. And there are good things and bad things in every scenario. And it really all depends on your perspective. If you want to look at men's rights and you can basically see that our lives are put in jeopardy a lot, that, men are generally asked to sort of quell their emotional feelings and not really speak up. What is it? Women and children first, right? Not men first. So there's a balance to everything and the way that we do things. And wokeness is sort of waking up to the fact that, oh, wait, we're all one and we need to treat each other as we wish to be treated. But if you kind of just like draw a line in the sand and go, I'm a Native American and I don't like what's been happening to the Native Americans and I'm going to get justice for us. Well, you've now taken a left turn at woke and you've walked down the road of revenge.
Right.
Wokeness.
So wokeness is it's almost being twisted like the way religion was.
Yeah, it is. I mean, as all these things get twisted, so I mean, like, it's great. Wokeness is just sort of an awareness of, the things that matter and the things that matter not. And, that we're all one group of people living on a planet and we got to be kind of treat each other the right way. But it's being hampered a little bit right now by a sort of a revenge idea.
Yeah, right.
Or retaliation or reparations, any sort of idea of like, you people, you're going to make right for what happened yesterday. And, when it comes to real wokeness, the next level is to understand that you are Black, you are gay, you are white, you're a redhead, you're a gray-haired old person, you're a young baby. You are all of the things. You've been all the things. You're also a caterpillar and a butterfly and a snake and a worm and an alligator and a dinosaur and a rock. You're everything. There is a system that we have here on the planet where energy is being cycled over and over with each other to let's see this. If you got a bottle, right, and you break it and you put it in the ocean, the pieces of glass are all sharp when it begins, right? But then as they go through the process of going through the ocean, all the rocks and whatnot rubbing up against them, after like a couple weeks, you go and you grab one of those pieces of glass, you're going to find out it's like beach glass. It's all soft on the edges, all soft, because it's learned how to not be cutting the other things around it and instead to be the right fit and a nice smooth vibe for the whole that is the ocean. And that's really, kind of the thing that we're up against right now, just smoothing out some of these details in our wokeness. But, the pendulum swings, back and forth. That's why we've got this irrational fear and rational fear and fearlessness and bravery, and any idea has two ideas that come with it. So hot and cold are not two different things. It's temperature. Temperature has two different settings. You can be thinking of temperature as being a warm temperature. You could be thinking of temperature as being cold temperature.
But it's still temperature.
It's still temperature. Love and hate are not one, are not two different ideas. Again, it's one idea, and it's sort of where are you in the degrees of that idea.
Right,
sometimes you love something so much that you hate it. You're compromised by it. All these things are on a spectrum. So, I really do believe that the woke culture that is going on right now will eventually sort of find its equilibrium and be a kinder, more reasonable woke culture. But a little bit of what they call woke right now, I think is a little bit vengeful.
Right.
But it is making the strides towards understanding that you are the chicken. So why do I want to hurt the chicken? Why do I want to hurt the cow?
You are the chicken.
Why do I want to hurt any of these fish and all these things? There's a balancing perspective to these things. And granted, when it comes to like, if you're I'm a meat eater, but it's also about recognizing that like, well, that's me and I'm taking a piece of me and I need to be grateful for the sacrifice that this thing makes and all this sort of ideas that are balancing out and bringing us to a oneness. So
Right.
really, if I had to bring it down to just one thing, wokeness is oneness. Is
Well,
realizing
the good
oneness.
definition of it, yeah. I mean, I think,
Yeah.
and I think awareness. The word awareness. It's like, well, what are you aware of, right? It's like, okay, you're awake, you're aware, and to me, it's just being aware that there's more to it than just this three-dimensional existence that we're in right now, which is what I think we all get caught up in, this three-dimensional existence and getting through day to day, but taking a step back from that and saying there's something bigger than this. And yeah, I do have to get through the day as this three-dimensional being, but knowing that there's something bigger gives you this kind of peace, knowing that you're part of this infinite.
Yeah. I'm so glad that you said that, because it made me think of another thing, sort of on top of it, because the wokeness, waking up, it never ends.
Mm.
Literally, a definition of God could be just the highest perspective on all things.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a perspective on me. Then there's a higher perspective on me that understands me and how I'm interacting with all the other things, all the other people. There's an even higher perspective on me that understands what happened to me in my previous life, or the life before that, whatever else, what made the energy that's in my system right now. The perspectives just go higher and higher and higher and higher. And when you're trying to wake up and be aware, what are you being aware of? Well, you're aware of as much as you can be aware of.
Mm-hmm.
But over time, your awareness continues to expand.
Mm-hmm.
And it literally sort of becomes like this thing where, like, it's like a shape being born from an old shape. So,
Mm-hmm.
like, let's say you start out as this circle and you're trying to understand what this circle is from the inside.
Mm-hmm.
Then you totally come to understand that, well, it's a circle that you're in. And then that gives you a perspective that pulls out of the circle and now looks at the circle. And now you're looking at this circle and you're realizing that the circle's this thing, and here's the outside of the circle. Now from there's an additional perspective where you come outside of the circle, where you're seeing yourself with this perspective and this layered thing that you have. And it's like a Russian nesting doll. It just keeps going
Mm-hmm.
with larger and larger and larger perspectives that are appreciating the thing on larger levels. And we are very, very small level in which that we're operating. And if you think of in terms of like animals, right? Animals, they're just kind of doing their thing. Oh, I'm hungry, I'm gonna go eat that mouse, says the snake. And then it's when you as a human being can go, oh, I'm hungry and I'm eating a mouse, and the mouse is a living being and it's just like me and I'm from this dimension. Like, that's having higher and higher perspective.
Right,
The
right,
higher
right,
you
right.
go, you just continue to understand the place that you're living in better and better.
Right.
And like, obviously, there's like all sorts of perspective going on of like, what are we built on? We're all built on this system of empty space and a nucleus, an electron running around. Everything's far apart from each other. We got cells in our body that are communicating. Like, I don't have a perspective on how these cells in my body talk.
Right, right,
There's
right.
so many things that I could know and I could really understand about myself. I'm not there yet. I know what I'm capable of knowing right now. And so there's just deeper and deeper and deeper levels of conscious awareness that we can have. And essentially that's what, wokeness is leading towards.
Right. Right. Well, really you're totally just describing the fractal nature of being, you know what I mean? Like, as you were talking about the scale of things, I'm like, well, really in infinity there is no scale, right? I mean, you can say, okay, I'm at the scale of a horse and that size of something, and then you can go up bigger and bigger, but then that bigger thing is actually the size of a horse when you get to a different perspective, exactly what you're talking about.
So what's the thing, right? Like, so when I play with action figures, I love toys, and I always keep it to one scale, the 6-inch scale, and I make a city, and I'm not going to make a phone that's the size of this action figure, because that's neither here nor there to the scale of this thing. So I need to scale everything into what makes sense for the thing that I'm looking at.
Right.
It's a 6-inch toy. I want a 6-inch building, or something that's made for a 6-inch toy to go and interact with. If I give my Punisher action figure a gun that's this big, what's that? What are you holding there, Punisher? It doesn't make any sense to the thing. So what I'm saying is infinity to the right, infinity to the left. What comes to matter is where are you? What cut out the portion of your universe? That's all that matters. The perspective that you can hold that matters to you in your situation. But everything just goes infinitely that way, and it goes infinitely that way, and it goes on forever. And this perspective can shift and change a lot.
Clowns to the left of me, jokers to
Jokers
the
to the
right.
right.
Here I
Here
am.
I am, stuck in the middle. Yeah, no,
Uh,
it's really neat. That's why I needed this giant sentinel, because he just wasn't giant enough compared to my X-Men.
right, right.
Uh,
So listen, I don't mean to stop in the middle of this, but
no.
we are coming to the end, and I had to go grab something, and I wanted to.
Oh, what
I
do you got?
don't see Courtney here, but I did get from one of our listeners, Courtney. I got this beautiful scarf that she made.
Oh, we got the scarf.
It's
He's
like a
all wrapped
blanket.
up
It's
in his
it's
scarf.
it's amazing. It's like a scarf and a blanket, and I just wanted to say thank you live here on the air
It's
to
very
Courtney.
warm.
Yes, it's very warm.
Now,
So
wait, what is it? What is it called with the thing that you wear on your head? It kind of looks like that. It's like a very flamboyant one.
it
If
is
you
kind of
walked around in a pink and purple one of those things, would people be mad?
you know what? If it's cold outside, I'm gonna put this thing on because
It's
this is
very
gonna
warm.
keep me warm.
That's funny.
You know what I mean? I
Yeah,
mean, I
no,
can
that's
I can
amazing.
bring myself to Jamaica when I'm in the dentist chair, but when it's snowing outside and I have to go outside, it's a little tougher. But no, but it's the same thing. I can apply that, and I can like just think warm thoughts.
Yes.
It's
Well,
all the power of your mind.
since we're getting towards the end of it, I'll try to wrap this thing up, and really
Yeah,
like
look
I
what I did
wanted to talk
there.
about this because I just wanted to help others arrive at some of the peace that I know I got to in acceptance of these things, and realizing how far that acceptance really needed to go, especially at this moment where we're dealing with something like war. People are talking about nuclear bombs and, like, all this stuff. It's scary. You want to think about any of these things really practically? Oh, that's so scary that people might get hurt and others might die. Like, that's awful. That's scary.
Mhm.
Just so is COVID. It's scary, but it's the lack of acknowledgement of our true feelings about the things, and our running off to conquer the things without actually conquering or acknowledging how we feel,
Mhm,
that I
mhm,
think is causing as much of the problem as it is.
mhm,
So, I what do you call it? I invite you all to really take a look at the things that you're afraid of and be brave and acknowledge them. You don't have to walk away with the what you're going to do about it,
mhm,
how it's going to change,
mhm, mhm,
um, and you don't falsely make yourself believe that by acknowledging these things you're immediately going to have to face them and overcome them, because now I've acknowledged it. Now I acknowledge the elephant in the room, and now I got to do something about it. It's really just a matter of, oh, there's an elephant in the room. Okay. The future version of you that maybe does something about the elephant or helps you to feel better about the elephant, they exist, but they exist beyond the acceptance of the thing, and not accepting the thing and fighting it, because you're afraid of it. It just perpetuates that fear. And
mhm,
I think
mhm,
the feeling of sort of powerlessness that we sometimes have when
mhm,
we're
mhm,
brought up against our fears.
mhm.
So, whether you're fearing people or the outdoors or whatever, just, accepting that that is true is not going to bring the outdoors to you or bring all the people that you're afraid of to you. And I really just advocate for taking a look at these things. And I
Yeah,
feel a
totally.
lot better after doing it myself.
Right.
And just being able to acknowledge that and say that out loud, like, I realize that I'm scared of a bunch of things, and I'm so scared of them that I don't even want to heal, because I don't want to have to deal with the things that I'm afraid of. Like that's
Right.
really a big deal. It was a really big deal for me to be able to say that and understand that. And it's definitely made me feel a lot better. So I know so many of us are dealing with fears on so many different levels all the time, and it's very easy to ignore what we're feeling. But if you think you have it in you, and I think you do, I think you've got it in you, to look inside and just acknowledge what's there. I think it'll make you feel a lot better. Anyway, we have a lot of great guests that we are working on bringing on to the show, and we're working on doing our next like calendar for a little while. But we've just been connecting dots kind of casually, and it just hasn't happened for this episode. But we've got a bunch of people who are waiting in the wings to come down. We hope you really enjoyed our special Tommy Chong episode that we did
That
the
was
other day.
awesome.
That was so cool. And we've got some other cool guests who are waiting in the wings. So we will see you next time on the live stream of consciousness. Obviously, anything that need be added, Mr. Michael Zinn?
I just again, we always talk about just knowing what your intention is, knowing that you're in charge. Again, when you said fear, I didn't realize you had your whole what was going on in your life with why you wanted to talk about it. I wanted to talk about it because of what I see globally. But again, if you know that what you're here for is to bring love and to bring understanding and to try, let's just get past this immediate reaction of, you're wrong, I'm right, and I've got to eradicate you because you're wrong. Like, we've all got to exist on this planet together. So
You know what? I've got one more thing to say.
you do.
I do, because it all ties into all this stuff. So last week or something, I don't remember what it was, but for people who were on the watching the show, you saw we had somebody who was in the comments who was being like a little bit of a jerk, and
Oh yeah,
that.
he's back. He's back again tonight.
Oh, I don't even care.
You didn't.
Yeah,
You didn't
I'm not
know.
even looking at the comments
Yeah,
tonight
yeah, yeah.
because I
It's all good. No, no, we
I
don't.
don't care. But
He enjoys the show. It makes him laugh. So, like,
but
that's all I care
I
about.
was sort of really confounded by how his presence made me feel.
Mhm.
Because like I acknowledged and like saw them for who they were and where they were at, and I
Mhm.
didn't it didn't bother me. But it did bother me on like a more representative level. And I was realizing that I was just sort of scared of people. That
Hmm.
that people's ability to just be so unkind, and that I dealt with a lot of that, a lot of people misunderstanding me,
Mhm.
misrepresenting me. I had made a post about my 1 year anniversary with Julie, and I was talking about feeling misrepresented and feeling that people didn't really get me. And then of course this a-hole posts on the thing, just again misrepresenting me and not really understanding who I am. I think he's
Yeah,
got
but
some
you know
sort of.
what? You got to understand, Jesse. He's not representing you in any way. He's representing himself.
Oh
And
no,
and
absolutely,
I mean
absolutely.
and look at how he's representing himself. So
Oh
it's
no,
like,
I said to
you
Julie, I
know,
said, dude, at the end of the day, he just keeps making himself look like an asshole. It keeps making me look
yeah, well, it's
like
like
the
you don't
nice
have to
person
do
that I
anything.
generally am. But
Yeah,
at the same time, though, it was representative of this fear that I had of
right.
people.
I got you.
And
Right.
that was that was part of me going into um trying to wrap my head around some of these fears, because I started to go like, man, like is some of the things that have been holding you back in your life and career that you just really don't want to deal with, the fact that there are people out there like that who will just be rude to you or unkind to you just because it's fun for them. And I started to go, ooh, like I think there's a lot of truth to that. Like, because this is
Mhm.
like the smallest, I've been on the freaking internet for ages, man. I mean, like back when I was a VJ on MTV when I was 19, dealing with people being a jerk to me or whatever. Like, I
Right.
don't care. Like, it's par for the course. But it was just bothering me. So that I could look at it. And when I did, again, it was that bit of acknowledging, oh, well, you know, I've had some problems with groups of friends in high school and
Mhm,
things.
mhm, mhm.
And I had situations where I felt like people had turned on me and been unkind to me or whatever. And just acknowledging these things, it was such a huge help. It just
Right.
immediately, you know, snapped me too. And I just went, oh, okay, well, that is what it is, and
Listen,
there's
I
no
feel
need
like
for me to be worrying about any of these
right.
ideas.
I feel like one of the things that I'd like to see happening, and that I have seen, because I don't know if you heard me say this recently, but everywhere I go, I see a reflection of myself in everybody, whether it's somebody I don't like, whether it's, an old housewife, whoever it is, I can see myself in that person. And kind of, as you were saying, we've all been each other, you know. So I feel like anytime something's starting to bother me, I realize that I'm the one who's giving it the power to bother me.
Mhm.
And I'm like, wait a second, I don't need to give it the power to bother me. If it does, if I just say that doesn't bother me, that person's powerless.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
You know
yeah,
what I mean?
absolutely. Absolutely. No, you were on the money, and, it was just it was another one of those great learning experiences
Right.
of, you know, you can't let these things block you, and you can't let these things stop you from doing the things that you wanna do and you're interested in doing. There's always going to be somebody saying the other thing to the thing that you're saying. Do you have to acknowledge it? Do you have to get in the dirt and wrestle with them? No. And
No.
and that was really like sort of my big conclusion. Like, I just came out of the thing going, why am I engaging with this a-hole in the first place?
Well,
You
you've
know,
got other people who are defending you, and
oh, well,
and
exactly. And
you
that was
know,
the other
but
thing of me realizing that I had all of this defense. I have all
yeah,
these wonderful
you don't need
people
to.
around me, and you know, and I don't need to sit there and defend myself to somebody who's being a jerk to me. You know, and that's not a requirement. Like, I don't have to jump out of the airplane. I don't have to go talk to the jerk guy. You know, that guy can just exist. The airplane can just
Right.
exist. I'll go talk to him when it feels good to me, or when I want to jump out of the airplane, I'll jump out of the airplane. But
I
I don't
feel
have
like
to
this.
force myself to do all these things. I just have to acknowledge, you know, the
There's,
scenarios.
you know what? It's funny because energetically, you know me with energy. Like, I feel like I'm I'm on his level, because as much as, like, we make him laugh, he makes me laugh. I'm
Yeah.
just like I'm just like, dude, like, seriously, like, who are you and why? But whatever. Like, listen, if we have it's one more listener. It's he's helping our algorithm. You know what I mean? Not only is he watching the show, he's making comments. Each comment that he makes adds to our visibility. So, thank you
Yeah.
is all I can
Yeah.
say.
Yeah, no. No, it's
It's
hysterical, and I mean, that
awesome.
was exactly where I was when he was commenting on the show last time,
It's
but,
awesome.
when it was
Please
posted on
comment away.
oh, yeah, when it was posted on the comment that I made for my girlfriend, though, I felt so like I just was trying to do something nice for my person, and then, like, I'm like, what's going on here? Why are you being a jerk about this? I'm just trying to
Right.
make a nice post about my girlfriend, like, to her. Like, it's because it's the day of the anniversary, trying to make her feel nice. This is so weird. But seriously, you know, you can't let any of these things be a barrier to your success or stop you because you feel like you got to fight it. You got to fight your fear. Like, and like, that was the thing. Like, I was sort of like bothered by the idea that anybody could come out of the woodwork. And I was like, well, if I can disarm the person who's come out of the woodwork and get them to understand that I want peace, then then I'll feel better. And it's like fucking ridiculous.
Totally. You know what?
There's
There
no need
were people
to,
here earlier who were making some comments, and I was like, "Oh, I wonder if Seth invited some friends to antagonize us." And I'm like, "That's awesome. He's like bringing us algorithm. He's
oh no,
bringing
I think he's actually made multiple profiles to try and appear
one of
like
the
he's
roots,
multiple people.
right?"
And actually, I have an idea that I might
We
even
like
know
him the way
who
he
he
is.
is.
Just come as Seth, man. You don't need to be anybody else. We
Yeah.
like you the way you are.
But no, it's wonderful, and I'm so glad that we've got the haters going on, because it's
And
what
you
you
know
need,
what?
man.
I have a ton of t-shirts, man. Next week I'll hold up a couple of my t-shirts. You can pick the one you want, and I will send it to you, Seth, because you
Yeah,
definitely deserve a t-shirt.
yeah, that sounds good to me. Well,
Oh,
like
this
you
is
said.
great. You know what? I think we may have a new bit on our show.
Oh yeah. We're gonna have to have him on as a guest next.
That would be awesome.
Here we are. We're here with Seth. Seth, what does consciousness mean to you? It means bullshit. It means a stupid show.
You know what?
Thank you, Seth. We appreciate it.
I'm sure. I don't want to invalidate his answer before we hear it. I'm sure.
No, I'm
You know
sure that Seth is a person just like any other people,
exactly.
his perspective is plenty valuable. I hope that he gains something from
Maybe we've
joining with us.
inspired him to do a show.
That'd be great. He should do the live stream of unconsciousness, and and then we can we can be like our sister show, the live stream of unconsciousness, because all is true in the polarized universe that we live in. All right. Well, I think we've
Anyway.
covered all the things about the fear. We hope you guys will
Yes.
go out into the world and accept that there are things to be afraid of, but don't let it bring you down.
You can be irrationally fearless too.
Yes. Anyway, we love you. Join us again next week on the live stream of consciousness.
Peace.